Hello everyone, welcome back to the Subscribe blog, and I have here Santosh, who is working on our team and has two jobs.
I work on service bus authorization and also on the relay functionality.
Yes, so if you have any things that are going on with the relay, that's you, and also with security. Those are two areas which I have also owned, like the relay kind of
For a long time.
For a long time ago. It was
you were the sole champion.
The dev and the PM for it even, because that was the thing that we had first.
Yes, that's very true.
And also had my hand in the authorization model for a while.
Yes.
Certainly. So.
The handprints all over there.
Yes.
They're big ones.
So we want to talk about the security model of Service Bus today.
Yes.
We have there's some presentations around that already, and we have a bunch of guidance. But what we see is people are still running as root.
Yes.
And that's sometimes that's okay, sometimes that's not so okay. So we want to go and talk a little bit about the options that we have.
Yeah.
And where we're coming from, and also a little bit where we're going.
Where are we going?
And some things we know, and some things that we might at the end probably speculate about where we're going. And we have some actually model for this because so we have an STS. Yeah. We'll get there. But we actually have multiple STS options already when you look across server and also the service. So
for today, let's focus on service a little more. I think we can talk about server as well, but then we get into some of the Windows authentication specifics.
Yes. So what we'll do is as we go deep on server, I'll do that with Ziv in a separate session. But we can go and touch on the fact that there's going to be different.
Yeah, I think there is symmetry between the two models, and we try to make sure that clients continue to interoperate, particularly if you write an application and it's targeted towards service, then you obviously want to be able to run that against server as well.
Yes.
So there is quite a bit of symmetry built in the two models, but we can call that out as we speak.
Yeah. So let's talk about the relay. Before we get into the whole token dance stuff, let's talk about the relay boundary first.
Yes. Okay.
So because we add something there that's special. Shall I draw, or do you want to draw?
I can draw.
Good.
All right.
So the typical.
So the issue here is that the service bus relay service sits in the cloud.
Yes.
And behind the on-prem firewall, you have a listener service.
Yep.
And then you have a client that is trying to communicate to this service via service bus relay.
Yes.
Now the issue becomes that invariably this service, which could be running, it could be any web service, it could be hosted on IIS, or it could be self-hosted. But invariably, if it provides access to some on-prem resource, it wants to do its own end-to-end authentication, which says that, for example, that Clemens has read access to a specific, so let's say if it is backed by a database or whatever, any data store, right? If it is serving out some data element, you have ACLs based on the, it could do claims-based auth, it can do any form of authentication that the application chooses, but it says that Clemens has read access, I might have update access.
The normal access control.
Exactly, right.
Things.
So now what you want is any token that, it wants some token from the client that makes a claim about who the end user is. And this is an application-specific claim, right? So the problem is that this service wants to do its authentication. However, in most cases, what happens is because this service is sitting behind the corporate firewall, a lot of admins are, they are unwilling to accept unauthenticated traffic entering their network.
Yes.
Which means that they also want to make sure that at least some level of first, initial authentication happens at the relay, which is to say that unauthenticated clients should not be able to access the relay endpoint and have their their request be forwarded into the corporate network, which means that.
So stop.
Yeah, okay.
Before we go there, everything we did here is true if you had just a client and a listener, and all this stuff would not exist. So now we have for this moment we have a transparent story,
which is to say that if the client was here,
Mhm.
your story would be just the same.
exactly.
So this token would be the same regardless of whether it was coming from here or it was coming from
Correct.
here. Yes.
So that needs to be either you want security or you don't
Yes.
on your end-to-end path.
Yes.
And that story remains the same whether you come through a bridge or you come directly.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that doesn't change.
So that's one of the things that I think sometimes customers struggle with is that we give you this additional boundary, and then they say, "Well, give me the token,"
Yes.
but that's not what it's for. So we
let's
have
talk a
this
little bit
additional
of-
thing, right?
Yes. So basically, invariably, the confusion arises because Relay has its own Relay client authentication. Right?
Yes.
So let me just call that out. And associated with this, you'll see enumeration, enums, basically. Call it Relay client authentication type. But basically, the Relay wants to authenticate the client, and
So
typically
there's we make a boundary
we make a
right
boundary
here.
right? Which is to say, and this authentication today is tied to ACS. It's expanding as we've talked about.
Mhm.
Going to provide more. We are providing more options. But the client actually first authenticates to the service bus relay. This token is issued by ACS, and so the client typically doesn't dance with ACS, acquires a relay token.
Mm-hmm.
And it sends the relay token as a part of this message. So, and in addition to that, it also, if the listener service wants to do its end-to-end authentication, there is the application token, which wants to do application-specific authentication. The issue arises because there are now two separate tokens that are part of this.
And they're for different purposes.
Yeah, for
so we have
different purposes.
so our claims model. This is kind of this is all based on a model around claims, and not everybody's familiar with that whole model, or not. You would think everybody's familiar with it.
It is a somewhat surprising.
Especially if you're working in the field. A claim is effectively a statement that you make, and then you have a security token service like ACS, an authorization service, that basically says, yes, that claim is true, and signs that digitally.
Yes.
So you can go and trust that.
Yeah.
So we in the relay, we're federating with ACS,
Yes.
and we're trusting that if you go to ACS and you acquire a token, we can verify that,
Yes.
and then we can get that. Now, we have a differentiation here between senders
And
listeners.
Yes, yes. So typically, in any relay token, you have a claim about who you are and the right associated with it.
Yes.
The claim is who, and the right is what you can do, which is what,
Yeah.
right? What can you do with that, right? So the right for this guy that is send,
Mm-hmm.
and the right that this person, this service needs is listen.
Yes.
So, the listener service, when it actually connects to the service bus relay at a specific endpoint, it needs a token that it presents, and it can also be acquired from ACS, that says that this service has the right to listen at this endpoint. Any client that connects says that yes, it can communicate to that relay endpoint. But this has nothing to do with application authentication.
Yes.
And this is where the issue arises, where typically what ends up happening is that customers who want to also implement end-to-end application authentication, they try, because this client is sitting outside of the corporate network, they need a token, an app token, right? So number one, you need a relay token, and now you need an app token that this service can understand in order to determine what type of data to serve to you.
So before we go to that token, let's stick with this send and listen thing for a moment.
Sure.
Because people are stepping on the wire for the camera, so you might be.
Sorry for that.
Yes, so just be careful. So let's stick with those things for a moment. People say, well, you have this ACS thing here.
Yeah.
so you're getting a token, why don't you give that to me?
Yes.
And so the reason why we can't give that to you is because we're doing that differentiation between send and listen.
Yes.
So if you have, so it's, the relay is having that, and also the queues and topics also have that. If you are listening to something, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have also the right to send to something, because you want to differentiate between those two things for all kinds of different reasons. We could go to all the scenarios, we don't have to.
One point
Yes.
here, which is, in order to validate any application-specific token, this service, the actual listening service, would need the signing key on the app-specific token.
Yes.
Now, if we were to hand out the signing key, because if it was the same token, then this client would have access to this signing key, which means that it would now also acquire the right to listen, which is one reason why we actually have to keep the two tokens
Correct.
separate.
Because you would have you have an elevation angle here.
Yes. So you have to be very careful about the signing key used on the relay token, which cannot be generally shared out.
Yes.
So-
So the signing key for the relay token belongs with the relay service, and so to this relationship here between those two, that's what that signing key is for.
Yes, and because the relationship between service bus relay and ACS is coupled at the namespace level, it ends up applying to the whole namespace invariably, the signing key. I mean, even though that you can issue tokens that have a realm or a scope that is associated with a given endpoint in ACS, the signing key within the ACS applies to the whole namespace.
So just to make a short A-side now, so we have this whole model. On the server, service bus server, you have effectively the same story. What you
Yes,
have here,
absolutely.
instead of this, is we have a little STS that we put into the server,
Which is a Windows STS.
which is a Windows STS, where we have the same notion of the signing key. We also issue tokens. We do all those things. We kind of do that under the covers. So it's a symmetric model. We have this $STS.
In case we don't have
which is-
ACS on the server, the service bus server on-prem, this Windows STS actually runs on the gateway service.
Correct.
On the service bus server. And so the basically client reaches out to the gateway, first acquires a token, and given that this is the Windows world, because it's on-prem, it presents as Windows credential. Right?
That's
So
right.
it's actually, so you come in and say, you are Clemens at Microsoft, I'm Santosh C at Microsoft. I mean, you present your identity, your credential, you acquire a token, and then you present that token back. And of course, the Windows STS is actually tied on the back end to either the Windows user store or to the Active Directory.
Yes.
Yes.
So don't worry about
Plug this back in. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh,
Yep.
yeah. Oh, wonderful. See, now it's back. Now it's back on power.
Yeah.
You won't see. It's all good. No worries. So let's put that away. So what we established is that this is for relay, but this is just generally also applicable in a similar fashion to the queues and topics, in that you acquire send rights and listen rights, and they might be different. They might quite well be different. Certainly, send rights are something you want to be a little bit more careful with. So in ACS, before we get to the federation pieces, in ACS, the thing we give you first is
Is an
owner.
Yes.
Yes.
So basically, the ACS model for authentication is tied to the notion of a service identity.
At the first level.
At the first level, with what is kind of built in. type
Yes.
of thing. In addition to that, of course, you can go on and federate the ACS namespace with ADFS or with Windows Live or with OpenID or any of the other Facebook identity, if that's what you really want to do. Now, so what we do as a bootstrap process, which is when you actually first provision your service bus namespace, is that we create this kind of in the Unix world, this would be called root, right? But we call it owner.
That's right.
And this is kind of the God service identity. And this is what we provision. And basically, once you use this service identity, you have access to the whole namespace. And what we found is that actually 95% of our users continue to use this single service identity because it suggests that for various reasons maybe they don't have need for federation. Yes.
Well, for many use cases, it's sufficient if you just use service bus header as an internal implementation detail.
If it's a broker,
it's kind of okay.
Yeah.
But owner has the one of the problems with owner is because it's special.
Yeah.
You can't delete it.
Yes.
So we made it a little more special than others. So if you leak the owner,
you basically compromise.
Yeah, you're kind of have a problem. You can still change the key, obviously, but you can't get rid of owner per se.
Yeah.
This is the same thing with administrator in Windows.
You can't delete the administrator account.
No, but you can disable it.
Yes.
Which means you could go and take the owner account, change the key, and throw the key away.
And so in general, I think, if you were to have a number of different clients and there was a security or a trust boundary between them, typically the expectation is that you would go and provision more service identities.
Yes. So we have a tool.
It's called SbAzTool.
Exactly, the SbAzTool, which I wrote with the sweat of my hands.
Yes.
The SbAzTool. The way you can get to the SbAzTool is
samples.
Is on the samples. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to put a shortener URL right here. There it is. And I'll leave that here for a moment. And so you can go to this URL, type it in, and then you can go and get the SbAzTool. I'll also have that in the description for this blog post, so you can actually see this underneath here. So you can get that SbAzTool. With the SbAzTool, you can go to your namespace
and you can
SES account. You can
provision service identities. You can associate them with specific endpoints. You can associate rights with them.
That's right.
Yes.
So with that,
makes that a lot more easier than
just going through the ACS portal and going through all the motions, because they have
a lot of advanced functionality, I think, associated with the realms and
it's great and powerful.
It's very powerful.
Yes, it's security.
Yes.
It's great and powerful and has 400,000 knobs.
Yeah, and you're the Wizard of Oz to get there.
Exactly. So the SbAzTool is aimed to just say, create a user and give the user the following rights. It kind of organizes your namespace as it ought to be, really, as like a file system, really. Yeah, because the namespace is meant to be a hierarchical structure that and also mostly for the reason of authorization, where you can go and give listen rights to a particular user on a branch of that tree, and then you can place your entities underneath that. So that's a tool you should get, and with that you can get out of this owner jail.
Yeah. Yes.
And then you can go and make identities basically for any of your clients.
Yeah, or any of your endpoints as well.
And for your endpoint. So you can go and secure
each endpoint independently.
Each endpoint, yes. So each subscription, you can make a...
Yeah.
So you can have, let's say, a topic, you have, 100 subscriptions, and each of those subscriptions can be associated with a particular owner. And that owner might be a device.
Yes.
So that's all requiring ACS.
That's about our ACS integration. And then coming back to then the question arises for Relay, coming back to the Relay authentication. If I have these two tokens, now how do I send them across?
Yes.
Right. So, and that's where I think in the case of SOAP, I think it's relatively straightforward because we use the service bus authentication SOAP frame, which actually contains the relay token.
Yeah, we use the relay access token header, which is separate from the double security stuff.
It's called the relay access token, you're right. SOAP header. The issue becomes in the case of HTTP. Now, what we used to have a while back was that we used to send the relay token over the authorization header, which actually precluded the use of the authorization header for end-to-end authentication between the client and the service. Now we realized that was not the best of approach. So one of the things that is not well known, and we should call out emphatically here, is that we now support a custom HTTP header for the relay authentication. So the relay token can go over a custom HTTP header called the service bus, and I'm going to write it here, where S and B and A are capital.
Mm-hmm.
Service bus authorization is the name of the header, and you can actually send the relay token as a part of this header in the same format that is supported for ACS. And then the application, the the HTTP authorization header can be used by the application token, and we'll just pass that through end-to-end to the listener service, so that the service, if it wants to use WIF or it wants to do its own authentication, can go and extract that header, verify the claims, and decide what type of data to serve to you.
So in that case, we end up being completely transparent to the authorization infrastructure that HTTP has with that.
Yes.
So there's two ways to make this all, to kind of complete the picture. As the listener, you have the ability with this setting here, which is kind of on the relay authentication type, which is on the binding here with us, you can turn this boundary on or off.
Yes.
By default, it's on.
It's on by default. If you want to not get into the business of particularly with the client of acquiring two tokens and managing this, because invariably if you have to acquire two tokens, you also need two ACS namespaces if you were to do federation.
Well, you can. So for your own authorization token, you can do whatever. You can use whatever mechanism
but
you
if
like.
you wanted to use federation, then you would end up with two namespaces.
But for instance, if you have RFC 2617 basic works.
It just works.
Digest works.
Digest works.
All the things, everything that you would do works, and you could conceivably even go and take your own SDS, which you have on premises.
Absolutely.
And project it out using the relay.
Yes, actually, that's another option, which is you can. Well, we can talk about that in another session about how do you actually project other services out. But in general, yes, you can project. The client can acquire this app token from any STS, and that is completely transparent to Relay. And of course, the Relay token you acquire from ACS and or any other new authentication mechanism we introduce, and it works at two separate independent layers. The service bus authorization header is extracted from the request. So we actually validate it here and we pull out this header, and the rest of the HTTP request just makes it as is.
Yeah. We never leak it, which means if you send the authorization header only, and you stick our token in there, we will find it. We will identify it as our token. We will pull it out. So we will never leak that token that's to us. We will never leak that to you.
Yes, exactly.
Unless you put that into a place where we won't recognize it, and in that case,
well, if you choose to actually also put it somewhere else, maybe in the body.
But if you turn the relay off here, we'll also pull it. So we will try not to leak that token. Of course, if you put that into the header and call that foo bar, we won't look there. But any place where we can conceivably find that token, we will go and strip it out. You will never see it.
First look for it in the service bus authorization. If we don't find it there, we look in the HTTP, the regular authorization.
Yes, that's right.
Cool.
So
that's the relay.
That's the relay authentication story, or authorization story.
Authorization.
Yes, with ACS now. There have been a number of requests for making that dependency on ACS. To lessen that.
Yes, so basically there is a number of scenarios where people, they're just trying to do, like, let's say application to app, it's app to app communication, or, very simple, like, particularly, as we, I think you've already done sessions about push notifications.
That's right.
Where you basically want to not get into the business of managing identities
for
those
4 million devices.
4 millions of devices.
Yes. And all you want to do is you basically just want to come in as a reasonably secured entity and say,
and there is some other mechanism to
notification.
Register that the application has to say, hey, I'm a registered user for you. I just want to be able to get my data. How do I get to it, right?
So
Which is receive a notification, or in the case of enterprise, it's just one service talking to another service. There's no need for federation there. How do you simplify that without getting into the business of the whole managing service identities federation?
So we're taking this away.
Yes.
And we're actually taking also this whole dance away here, the token dance away. So the client no longer has. So let's stick with the relay here, even though that also applies. I mean, we can just keep that whole place somewhat intact, and go and move a little bit of this. So we have that picture a little cleaner. Okay. So we'll bite more.
Yeah. We also move this because we no longer talk about app talk.
That's right.
Yes.
So the app story remains
the same.
Exactly the same. There's no change whatsoever.
Yes.
So we're now introducing a model that is
so
known
with calls shared access signature authentication.
We know that from somewhere.
Yes, it's for people who are familiar with Azure, and particularly Azure Storage, this is going to sound deja vu. All over.
Yes.
Yes. So you're going to get that sense of like, hey, I know this. All right. So, which is great because there's no new learning to do, and it's all going to come to you very intuitively. So the shared access signature
You're a little high there.
Am I?
Yes.
All right. Well, okay. So, but I think it's fairly obvious. So I don't have to write it. But I'm going to abbreviate that as SAS because it's SAS, Shared Access Signature Authorization. So it's fairly simple, straightforward. Associated with each namespace or an endpoint, you can now configure a SAS authorization rule, which and as a part of the rule, you specify a primary and a secondary key, and you have rights associated with that key. You can just yourself generate tokens. There are a couple of differences here from the model that people are familiar with in terms of the Windows Azure Storage. Primarily, given that in the storage world, you have a single storage account. And typically, the usage of storage is abstracted out by services running on Windows Azure.
Yeah, it's like a disk.
Exactly. It's a disk, so you basically want to manage access to the disk. So it kind of makes sense that they have a single account and a key SAS key.
And it's more like a disk with sectors than a file system.
Exactly.
You built the file system on top with your own service, but you kind of get what you get with Windows Azure Storage is sectors.
Yes.
That's kind of what it is. So you get if you are the system and you authenticate yourself as the system, then you get access to all the sectors and you build your file system.
You have containers within that, which are kind of like
sectors.
Yeah.
Right. That's how some of that's actually how our devs talk about it when they're
precisely how they refer to it. Right. And as we use it on the back end as well for
So, but we now kind of put these SAS keys on the entity level.
Yeah. So the difference in our case is because these services can have like let's say look at queues or topics where you have a single topic, there's a sender, and then given associated with that can be multiple subscriptions which are associated with the readers. So you want to be able to differentiate between the different subscribers, and hence you want what we provide, which is slightly distinct from storage, is the ability to configure multiple SAS rules and hence multiple keys at each level. So we allow you to configure up to 12 SAS authorization rules at the namespace level. And similarly, given if you look at the hierarchy of within the namespace.
How do you get to 12? That seems arbitrary. Anything that's not 0, 1, or n is suspicious.
It was just typically people need 4 rights that you can think about, right? There's listen, there is send, there is the manage right, which also typically allows you to easily get to the listen, send, and manage, right? Listen and send rights. So if you have manage, you invariably can get the listen, send rights. So, and then there's the listen and send, which is I don't want to give somebody the permission to create or delete entities, but at the same time, I just want to allow you to communicate. So if you look at it, there's typically the 4 combinations that most people use, and given that you want to be able to, sometimes you want to be able to provision a key, and you want to phase one set of keys out while you're phasing in the next set.
So you have more slots.
So you just want more slots, which is why we gave you 3 slots, right?
Yes.
For that, and that's how we came up with the number 12. It's just a round number, just from the dozen perspective, not as in 10.
And the goal here was to make sure that this doesn't degenerate into an identity store.
Exactly. So the idea is not that you can have thousands of keys and then you get into the same business that ACS is, which is they are really the true STS. We are not an STS here.
So can you do individual keys at a subscription level?
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about that. You can do keys at the entity level, and that means queues, topics, and notification hubs.
Okay.
You cannot do keys at the subscription level, but you can do keys at the topic level, and we'll talk about how you can actually secure subscriptions. Right?
Okay.
So let's talk about that. So in a given namespace, you can have 12 SAS authorization rules, and associated with that is a key. And the process that you use is the client doesn't actually present the key itself. That would be insecure because it was traveling over the network. The client actually proves it's, so let's say if you had, in the same relay model, you had a key with the send right for the client, and you have key 1, let's call it, and then another key 2 for the listen right? And maybe I have third key, which is just the manage right? Right? And associated with this is of course listen and send.
So that's how the rule works, right?
Yes.
It's just here's the key, here's the right.
Here's the right. That's it, right? So this is all you need to know. Now, what ends up happening is the client needs the key. So this guy, because it needs the send right, would know key 1. This guy, because it needs the listen right, would know key 2, right? And of course, you don't have to share them.
So that's already differentiated to what the storage model.
The storage model.
So for storage queues, they don't have that kind of differentiation.
Yes,
so we
it
kind
is.
of have that.
So the difference here is that given that service bus, particularly in the broker and also in the relay scenario, is intermediary between two different services, you typically want to be able to create that separation between rights and the keys associated with those rights.
And I think that's also a key. That's actually, you said something very important here. It is between two different services.
Yes,
it is not. It is not.
Entities,
It is not the same service that usually. Where we see those things. So we actually need to have the differentiation.
Because
Well, storage is not.
As a name suggests, it's service bus, right?
Yes,
you're
exactly.
an intermediary, right?
Yeah.
You're brokering on two sides. So, which is why it means we get into the different rights associated with keys, and it's very important to separate them out from our customer scenario perspective. So, what the client would do then is the same approach that the storage model takes. From here on out, it's exactly the same, which is you, based on a given resource that in this case the relay endpoint that this client is trying to access, you would have a URL along with a specific expiry. The client just uses signs that creates an HMAC SHA-256 for those two elements. It just pieces them together into a string and signs it with the SHA-256, and it just sends it across to and that's your token.
So effectively there's all kinds of Jedi motions you need to do on the, like, follow the protocol.
Yeah. So the format is you can look in the document. We'll have the documentation that talks
so if
about
you
the specific kind of the delimiters, etc. you need to use. But otherwise, it's just hey, there's a given URI that I'm trying to access, and the token expires at a specific duration. So the URI plus expiry are the two most important elements, and you sign that with the HMAC with key 1, and that's it. That's your.
So of course, all of our APIs will go and just make that wonderfully easy.
Yeah,
you don't
so
have to worry
it's
about
just
that.
you don't have to worry about it. Particularly if you're using the .NET SDK, you get the shared access signature token provider.
So you go to the portal, or you go to the
everywhere it's the same
API, and you kind of get the
connection
key out.
string. Yeah, you can. So we're going to build it into the same model that we started to head down, which is connection strings. So if you log into the portal, you can go and configure any of those rules. You can create and delete them or add any rules you want to add, associate rights with them, do that management in the portal. And then once you've created the authorization rule, you get the connection string for that, and in your client you just paste the connection string and instantiate that as a token provider. Or you can directly go and say messaging factory dot create from connection string with that connection string, and that's it. That's the only change you have to do.
So
all of the other magic happens under the covers.
So with that, we have a alternate model for authorization, which is completely service bus intrinsic.
Yes.
Doesn't have a dependency on the ICS.
It is inherent. There's no other tokens to acquire. There's no other dance to do.
So the capabilities that we lose, in quotes, are federation, and then so that's effectively your choice, right? It still remains federated with ACS.
So we continue to support ACS for customers who need federation, particularly if you have scenarios where you're for whatever reason, if you want to authenticate with your corporate identity and you want the token to be an ADFS based identity token or any other federated model, that will continue to work. You now have a choice of another authorization mechanism.
So now you need to go and tell me the Jedi motion here, because
Yes.
I know there's one.
Yes. So let me just talk about, why don't you lead on and then I will fill it in.
Well, so I have a topic, and I want to be able to send to that topic.
Yes.
So that's easy, because I have
Yes.
the topic has a key one, and then has the send right.
Yes.
And so I go and use that key, and I go and send to that topic. So that's easy.
That's easy.
So now I have subscriptions, and they're called Foo, Bar, and Baz.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
So what do I do?
Yes. So this is where it gets slightly more interesting, which is now you cannot actually secure subscriptions per se using the SaaS key. What you do is, given that an entity, typically the person who owns the topic would have the manage right and also possibly the listen and other rights, send rights associated with that. The subscriber here would go and you can issue to the subscriber a SaaS token itself. You don't have to actually share with them the key one, which is actually in this case it would be key 2 for the listen right. What you would do is, because now you know the key itself, right, and you know what URI they're trying to access, which is the subscription has its own URI. So typically, you have my namespace, let me call that ns /topic t /baz is your subscription, right?
Well, /subscription okay.
Yeah, I'm going to simplify it for the URI, because the URI gets to be 200 characters long, but this is your typical URI, right? So this is the URI that you're trying to access, and this guy is ns/t/bar, and this guy is ns/t/foo.
So you can have a backend service which now kind of issues
so
a token with that expiry.
Exactly.
And
So the
sends that
issue
out.
is that instead of sharing the key with this guy, you would pick any expiry you want and associate the URI plus the expiry, sign a token, and you just give out a Baz token to this guy, the bar token to this guy, and so long as the token doesn't expire, they can continue to, if the subscription continues to work. You can, of course, come back and acquire a new token, wherever that is.
So that model is actually exactly like giving a key to a public blob on Blob Store.
It is. So basically, if you look at the storage model where they give out a shared access signature as well to a given entity or a third-party client or a website to access a given blob, and that's precisely the same model where you're actually giving out a shared access signature token here, which is scoped to this subscription.
So let's go. So if I was building a device scenario here.
Yeah. So this probably makes the most sense in the notification hub scenario, as you just talked about, where you have mobile clients that want to, let's say, if you had a news service or a weather service, and you want to subscribe to, let's say, weather alerts for 98052,
Yes.
Which is the Redmond zip code, and I live in Bellevue, which is 98004. So a mobile, my mobile phone would want to subscribe to, let's say, 98004 zip code, weather alerts for that. So you basically, the weather service would hand out, if I want to receive weather alerts, I would, and I was running the weather service, I would hand out to a device that was interested in weather alerts for 98004 a SaaS token that is scoped to, my notification hub /98004.
Yeah, I mean the other angle is that if you have notifications that are, if you're using subscriptions as mailboxes.
Yes.
Right, so you can either do multicast to everybody, or you can do unicast or rules to just singly one of them. Well, what you can do now is you can go, and as you provision, so the mobile device comes to you, you do the first run experience, hello, this is me, give me a password, blah, blah, blah. And then you go and make that subscription, you make that mailbox, and then you just make that key for them, and then you make a non-expiring token or very long-lived token, and they can go and embed that in their device, and then they have access to their topic.
And then people ask about what do I do? I give out this token. How do I, what do I do if I don't want to deny that client access? So typically in scenarios like this, what ends up happening is that because you're not actually managing the identity of the various clients themselves, what you typically when you want to revoke or when you want to roll or when you want to manage the life cycle of the key in any form, you want to do it at the key level, not at the token level.
Yes.
Right?
So we have in
this is where we have the 12 rules where if you wanted to, for whatever reason, something got compromised or your key leaked out or whatever happened, you would go and delete the key. If you just were managing, regular cadence of management, and if I was doing versioning of the app, I'm ready to roll out the next version. What I would want is to go and provision another set of keys, have the clients gradually migrate over, so that they allow a
if
period
your
of
key
time.
expires, then you come back and get a new
Exactly.
one.
I know that I gave out tokens
Yes.
with an expiry of, let's say, 1 month, and I'm gonna for the duration of a month continue to have 2 sets of keys.
But here in this case,
Start issuing tokens with a new key, and then let the old ones expire, and then delete the old key.
I mean, here in this key, where we are using topics and subscriptions kind of as a mailbox scenario, well, if it actually happens that you find out that this gets compromised, delete the subscription.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So once the subscription is gone, then there's nothing that this thing can ever go and get to.
Absolutely.
And those will typically not have names like foo, bar, and baz, but they will actually have
some random GUID.
some random GUID or some random number.
Yeah.
And that will be fine. So we end up with 2 very powerful models, one for ACS and one for shared access signatures.
And I think they are very clear, positioning of where you would want to use each. If you have any federation requirement, we would still continue to support and recommend that you use ACS. For other customers, we would recommend that you use shared access or signature authorization.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very clear differentiation that addresses 2 different needs, and also hopefully addresses them very powerfully and simply for both of the scenarios.
So in the server, we did some homework, but we didn't kind of completely do the homework completely. So there's a third option, which is kind of on the horizon. We might still get to it. I think eventually we'll get to it, which is currently on the ICS path. ACS and Service Bus are kind of a little bit embedded with each other.
Yeah.
Because the key that signature key, we protect that key, so we're keeping that from you.
So one of the other things we want to do is, even in the ACS path, we want to be able to allow people, even on the service side. I mean, you mentioned the server definitely, but allow people to bring their own ACS namespace, or in the server case,
or your own any STS that can issue tokens that we can understand.
Yeah. So let's say if we, for example, today we accept SWOT tokens, and we are on track to actually add support for job tokens. For
job
example,
spelled JWT.
Yes. The JSON Web Tokens. So I think that in a few weeks, I think you'll be hearing more on that. But in the meantime, for example, for SWOT tokens, if you had any other STS that was issuing SWOT tokens, you could wire up, instead of using ACS, if you wanted to use your own STS, that so long as it issues SWOT tokens, I think that's all we care about. And that's particularly interesting, as you mentioned, for the server scenarios, where you want to be able to, if I did not want to rely on AD, or if I want to do my own user management,
or you have just 3 namespaces that are sitting in different places, but you want to have a single STS that wants to go and use them. So absolutely. I mean, there's various scenarios. So that's something we have kind of half plumbed in the system, but I think what's missing is actually just a management surface for that.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the other goals that we have, and there's definitely more coming on the horizon with the recent developments in Azure Active Directory.
Yes.
Which is also you can think about it in a form of yet another STS.
Correct.
So I think as we look down the horizon and what's coming on in terms of authorization for Service Bus, I think there's definitely integration, support for job tokens. There's integration with Azure Active Directory. Provide a more seamless experience, particularly for use cases where Azure Active Directory is already set up to synchronize or proxy with your on-prem Active Directory.
That's right.
I think that's a very powerful scenario. In that case, it actually becomes almost identical to what we're already doing on the server, which is kind of ironic. Like
that's true,
typically,
yes.
Features flow from service to server, and now in this case, like all of the capabilities that we built in on the server would turn out to be making us, almost halfway to supporting AAD, which is great. You always look for those.
But so in the end, what we have is a very differentiated and very powerful story. You can keep things as simple as you want. So just you can just basically just not think about this. If you're comfortable with running with root as owner, just go do that.
If it's running, you're happy with what you're doing today, just keep doing it.
Yes.
Nothing changes.
I would say use the sbAzTool and probably make another account that says
at least make one more service identity.
That's called root.
A min bar.
And don't use owner because that actually is
because it cannot be deleted.
Yes,
right?
it's
so
special.
I think that's the reason.
But if you're happy with that, then that's all perfect. But you have all these options, and we already have some samples. Like the sbAzTool actually comes with a library that you can also use to kind of go and secure things.
Yes, and I think as we roll out with the SDK for the support for SaaS, a lot of samples and
all of that
guidance.
is always on the code gallery in MSDN, where that's where all the samples land, so you can go and download them. Santosh, thank you very much.
Thank you. This was great.
That was great fun.
Yeah.
I hope that was fun for you too. See you next time.
See you next time.